Pressures. I am Trish Steiner, Chair of the Community Awareness Committee. We are a committee of the Neighborhood Safety Commission. The Neighborhood Safety Commission is comprised of individuals appointed by the chairman and the district commissioners. We welcome you and thank you for attending this evening, and welcome those of you who are viewing us on Channel 23. Our committee members are Vicki Plunkett, Pearl Roberts, Joel Cope, and Johnny Brown. We have file cards available for written questions. Vicki, Pearl, Johnny, and I will be available to take your written questions. Please turn your cell phones off or on silence, as your phone will interfere with the broadcasting of this discussion. Our moderator this evening is Joel Cope. Joel is a member of the Community Awareness Committee and the Neighborhood Safety Commission member. Joel is an attorney whose practice is trial litigation, and he has been a practicing attorney for 18 years. He currently serves on the Neighborhood Safety Commission and served as its chair for one term. He serves as president of the Mableton Improvement Coalition and president of the Mableton Community Fund. He has also served as secretary and president of the HOA and was appointed by past county commissioner chairman to serve as a member of the Transit Advisory Board, eventually obtaining the position of board vice chairman. We especially want to thank Joel and our distinguished panel members, who Joel will introduce to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Trish. Again, my name is Joel Cope, and I'm a member of the Neighborhood Safety Commission, and I will be the moderator for this evening's panel discussion about teen pressures. And I want to thank our panelists off the bat for their willing to share their experiences and their wisdom with us this evening. As Tricia said, this is a panel discussion in which we will be hearing questions from the members of our audience, and this will be seen by the members of the audience that are in attendance here, as well as on TV 23 live, and they can also see this later on our website, as well as the TV 23 website. So there are multiple ways for people to participate and learn about the things that we're going to be covering tonight. The topic is teen pressures, which I realize is a broad topic, but that's a good thing. There's a lot of material to cover here. I think you'll find this very informative. We, again, are blessed to have several people here with us this evening, and I will introduce them to you in no particular order. The way this will work is that we're going to introduce the panelists, then each one is going to say a little bit more about himself or herself, and then we'll go into the question and answer session, which I will be asking the questions of them. We will make sure that the questions we ask are ones that all the panelists can weigh in on, so this won't be a panel where all the panelists look at one another and go, you want to get that one? This will be one where all the panelists can participate and add commentary, because, again, we're very fortunate to have these panelists here who have a wide array of experiences and professional backgrounds that bring some illumination to our topic here tonight of teen pressures. The first one is Marnie Herman. She spent 22 years in law enforcement, beginning with the Cobb County Police Department and serving in uniform as well as the Detective Bureau, and she herself grew up in Cobb County. We also have Charles Boring, who is an assistant district attorney in the Cobb Judicial Circuit, and he is in the division with crimes against women and children, and he's a graduate of Georgia State University College of Law. We also have Chris Collins, who serves as the executive director of the Boys and Girls Club of Mableton in South Cobb. And we also have a teenager to provide us a real-world perspective, Lamar Osley, who will be with us this evening as well, and he can offer the teen perspective. I want to thank each and every one of you in advance for your willingness to participate. And what I'd like to do then at this point is turn it over to Ms. Herman, if you will begin by providing a little explanation about your background, and then we'll go from right to left, and then we'll begin the Q&A at the portion where Mr. Osley speaks.
Thank you. I'm Marnie Herman, and I am currently with the Cobb County School District Police Department, where I have been for just over 11 years. I am currently assigned to a middle school, and all of my 11 years has been served at the middle school level. I am also responsible for several elementary schools as well. Prior to that, I was with the Cobb County Police Department, both in the Uniform and Detective Bureau, Crimes Against Children, and I was also with the Cobb County Solicitor's Office with domestic violence investigations. I did grow up in Cobb County, and I also attended Cobb County schools. I'm married, and I have a middle schooler myself who attends the Cobb County School.
Wonderful. Thank you. Mr. Boring?
Yes, Chuck Boring. I am an assistant district attorney in the Cobb DA's office. I supervise the Crimes Against Women and Children unit here. I've been in the Cobb DA's office this time for almost 4 years. Before that, I was in Fulton County for about a 5-year stint doing homicide and crimes against women and children. Before that, I'd also worked in Cobb before doing crimes against women and children. I've been a prosecutor for about 14 years. Our unit prosecutes all crimes of physical and sexual nature against children and all sexual crimes against adults and children. So I was born in East Point, grew up in Griffin, Georgia, and went to undergrad at Georgia Southern, law school at Georgia State. Now I do live in Cobb County.
Wonderful. Thank you. Mr. Collins?
My name is Chris Collins. I'm currently the executive director for the Matthews Boys and Girls Club of Metro Atlanta. Prior to that, I was the education director at the Joseph B. Whitehead Boys and Girls Club over in Fulton County. Part of my role as being an education director, I also worked with several committees in formulating different projects, different curriculums where we actually facilitated and helped develop over 400 of Metro Atlanta's actual youth development professionals, served on committees with North Georgia Alliance Boys and Girls Club and helping to facilitate and develop curriculums for them as well. Prior to that, I actually fell in love with youth development as a volunteer. As a volunteer, I facilitated at the Atlanta Technical College, actually, at a male institute. Facilitated a program with them or some high school males about interpersonal communications and things of that nature. But again, I started out as a volunteer during undergrads through different campus organizations and really fell in love in working with youth. And since then, I've dedicated my life to ensuring that they are given different opportunities and resources that they otherwise might not have had.
Thank you. Mr. Collins? Hosley?
My name is Lamar Osley, and I am a junior currently going to South Cobb High School. I am originally from Chicago, Illinois. That's where I was born and raised. And last year I moved to Atlanta, Georgia. It was really nothing much. I'm still in my education state right now. I'm trying to stay focused in my books, and really that's it.
All right, great. Thank you so much. As we have said earlier, the topic tonight is teen pressure. I realize it's fairly broad. If you can, each one kind of address what are those pressures that are confronting teens today? Ms. Herman, would you like to start?
Sure. Again, my experience with the school district police department has exclusively been at the middle school level. I'm currently at a middle school with about 800. Those are 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. So my students typically range from 11 to about 14, some 15, depending on when their birthday is. So my experience every day in public school, kids do worry about their grades. There's a lot of pressure about their grades going on to high school. What is high school going to be like? There, unfortunately, is some bullying that takes place inside of school as well as outside of school. And so we have been dealing a lot lately with the social media. Everything on the internet is instantaneous. And sometimes I think that our students, our teenagers, don't realize that once they put it out there, they can't take it back. And it is instantaneous. And so we do deal with some cyberbullying issues. That can sometimes, unfortunately, get into some areas of sexting. Also, I think some things as simple as what kids are wearing, trying to be popular, status amongst their peer groups. At my particular school, as well as quite a few other middle schools in Cobb County, we have adopted a uniform dress code to try to help alleviate some of the pressures concerning who has the nicest clothes or the most expensive shoes, because those are things that particularly that middle schoolers do worry about.
Thank you. Mr. Boring?
My experience is somewhat similar, but a little bit, I guess, wider ranging with prosecuting the crimes that I do. I kind of start from a basis. I worry a lot. I've got a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, so I see this stuff and I worry. I'm horrified by the pressures that they're going to see. They already have enough pressure on them, even at that young age now in today's society. We see a lot of what Marnie was talking about, pressures, getting pressured into things on social media, getting involved in social media, and somehow that segueing into possibly becoming victims of crimes or committing crimes. I think we also see a lot of teen pressures that lead to drug abuse and things like that. And a lot of it is dependent upon where the teenagers live, what their community, things like that. You may have a community where it's so competitive in the educational field as far as getting grades, getting into college, and some of the school districts around here where it's knockdown, drag out to get the best grades, to get to that Ivy League school, and a lot of the pressures there. Based upon that, a lot of kids turn to substance abuse in those situations. There's a lot of pressure on high schoolers as well, teenagers. As we've seen a few cases recently here, one going on right now in Cobb County involving gang activity. You have kids that feel pressure hanging out with their friends from youth that get in with the wrong crowd that may fall into gang activity, and that can lead from one thing, just hanging out, to committing thefts, to committing violent crimes, things of that nature. So there are a lot of pressures in that regard too. So I think it's varying what we see, and unfortunately we kind of see the end result of it.
Okay. Mr. Collins?
One of the pressures that I would like to point out is high expectations with lack of resources. Like you talked about, we want our teens to excel educationally, excel socially, but when they're lacking those resources, that also creates a lot of difficulties for them. A great example I can use is for myself personally. I was fortunate growing up. I was able to obtain a job at the age of 14 or 15, so I had some financial resources for certain things, for different fees for school, to go out and do extracurricular activities. One of the things I'm finding is, especially when the job market kind of started having some difficulties, a lot of the jobs that typically teens would do and a lot of the financial resources that they had, then a lot of adults were starting to tap into that. So that created a lot of difficulty for them through that being one lack of resource. So there's several pressures that teens are faced with, but one thing that I will say is looking at what's expected of them and not having those resources available for them to utilize, that definitely creates a lot of pressure and it creates a lot of stress for them.
Okay, thank you. Well, Mr. Osley, since you're the teen yourself, how about getting us your perspective of what the pressures are that you deal with on a daily basis or a weekly basis?
Wait, repeat the question one more time.
If you can tell us what the pressures are you experience as a teen, either on a daily or weekly basis.
I would say some of the pressures would be, like what my colleague said, pressure, but without lack of resources, pressure from other people, from our peers, and maybe sometimes maybe pressure to be somebody that's on television. Like you might see somebody rich and famous, but they probably didn't go through hard work in order to get that, in order to get to where they're at now. So they might, try to go, I don't know, rob a bank or something like that. But yeah, I agree with them.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
They took my
Well, obviously, as you can tell from some of the answers you've heard, the teen pressures are numerous. And so let me try to see if we might unpack some of those, because, again, they are so broad. One of the things that's been brought up is the role of social media and the internet. I would imagine that's obviously changed the role of parenting quite a bit in that regard, as well as experience that kids have and teens have. Let's just focus on Facebook, for example, and things like Twitter. How have those changed teen pressures or added to pressures if they have? And again, these questions are all the panelists that can answer at any one time. So.
Well, I'm going to, I'll start if y'all don't mind.
Just keep it going that way.
I think we could probably all agree that the basic teen pressures are probably timeless. Trying to be popular, trying to succeed, pressures to do potentially illegal drugs or alcohol. Those kind of things seem to have gone generation to generation. I feel like what is a challenge both in law enforcement and then also being in the public school system every day is, in fact, the internet and social media. Again, it's instantaneous. Now, I'm going to laugh a little bit at Facebook because my middle school students at my school would tell you that only old people use Facebook now. That is quite passé amongst some of the younger crowd. There's things like Vine, Uvu, Snapchat. There's quite a few other ones. Kik is a very popular one that I probably deal with on a daily basis with my students. Those are very readily accessible. Most of their parents don't even know what sites that they are on. And most of it starts at home and then unfortunately kind of filters into the school day, creating another set of problems.
Well, let me kind of unpack what you just got through saying. You mentioned several different apps or internet applications. Can you kind of explain for the audience that may not know what these are? You've mentioned like Hulu and
Right.
Vine, several of those.
Most of the, and will probably, I hope that our student can expand a little bit from his perspective, because I probably fit into the older category because I still Facebook with my friends and family. That's a way to keep in touch. But most of my students, again, I'm 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, think that that's a little bit old-fashioned. They want even a quicker response. Instagram, some of them even think that Instagram is a little lame. And Twitter, they are looking for something that's a little more spontaneous, a little more right now. A Kik is an instant messaging. You do not have to have you can do it on a tablet, on a smartphone, but you don't necessarily have to have phone service. So it is a texting, and I would say probably most of my students at my school have access to some sort of phone or tablet or device that they can access the internet and then text.
Kind of picking up on that as far as how social media has changed the pressures. I would say, the world is such a small place now because everybody can have contact with one another immediately. Where you may have had in the past somebody spreading rumors about another person, or a child's made a bad decision and her classmates are, talking about her, spreading rumors, and it just kind of gets, it can be contained to some degree. Now with the internet and social media, it's almost immediately out there. It would just say if a child takes a teenager takes an inappropriate picture of herself, sends it to her boyfriend. I guess back when they had Polaroids or whatever, maybe it's stuck to that one picture. Now it could go on the internet and it could be all over the world in a matter of minutes, seconds. So that's kind of how social media has really changed that. In addition to that, it's funny you talk about Kik and some things like that. One of the biggest issues regarding teen pressures and getting involved in social media, and I guess the importance of parents monitoring their kids, is the fact that on these social media applications and I guess websites and things like that, is not only the fact that there are kids on there, but there are adults. And if you've got adults that are trying to interact and find children for ill purposes, there's no way to stop them from doing it at that point. They're on this, they can make contact with children, and the children being with a lack of maturity can sometimes be talked into doing things in this nature, or can be tricked, or things of that nature. So the access that adults have to children and children to adults and adult-themed things on social media and the internet has really kind of changed the pressures that teens face. It's kind of exacerbated what was already there.
Okay. Mr. Collins?
I believe with the internet, all these different social media apps, I kind of tie television, reality television into this. It creates a very false perception of reality for teens. And in that, I say with these social media apps, you only get a small perspective of the entire. When you look at photos of people who you view as being successful, people, whether celebrities or your peers or other adults, you see them having certain material things, living a certain type of lifestyle. For a teen, they might look at that and be like, that's what I want. That's the way I would choose, I would like to live, and those are the types of things that I want to have. But in viewing that, you don't see the hard work and the background and the backside of things that are done outside of the public in order to obtain or accomplish a lot of the things that they have. So I think with these social media apps and the internet, things of that nature, it creates a false sense of perception for you don't really get to see the hard work that's put into obtaining a lot of the materialistic things and a lot of the successes that are being perceived in these little snapshots of social media.
Okay. Mr. Hosley?
I think there's a lot of pressure coming from social media sites, because when people get on, like when they mention Kik and Instagram, like people want to have like a high number of friends or people who follow them. So then they could let other people know that like they're the top dogs. They have a lot of friends and they have more than you. But it could come to the point where if somebody's following you, they could be stalking you. Like you don't know who that person is, and you can't really call them a friend because you just pushed a button. And with people, you know, it's like a contest. It's like a competition. So if you, I'm trying to put it into words of what I'm trying to say. So like, if I have like this many friends, right, and somebody else shows me like they have more friends than me, then it comes to the point where like I want to be like this person. I want to have as much friends as him, maybe even more. But really, you can't say that he has that many friends because he don't know that person. He don't know that person well enough to call him a friend. So I think pressure really ties into more not really social media, but more into the peers and the people around them.
Do you mind sharing with us what are some of the apps that you and your peers use the most?
Well, you have Instagram, you have Kick, I have Glide. You have a lot. Some people still get on Facebook. Some, I guess, MySpace. Don't know who use that anymore, but some people still have MySpace.
Okay. Is there any appeal in the fact that you might be using applications that maybe parental figures or adults can't easily get into or access?
I would say no.
That's not really a factor in your thinking?
Mm-mm.
Okay. And you said there's this kind of an unspoken competition as far as the number of followers you have. Is it sort of like a popularity type contest in a sense?
I would say so.
Okay. I think that you made an interesting point, Mr. Collins, Mr. Osley, about the fact that there's this disconnect between the expectations placed on students and sometimes their ability financially to reach those expectations. Mm-hmm. How does that play out from what you observed and what you experience, and how do kids often try to bridge that gap between expectations and the financial resources?
One of the ways that I would say that they try to bridge that gap is they don't place as much focus in their education. They look for other avenues to try to accumulate economic resources, whether it is stealing, whether it is trying to find other ways to hustle and try to place a lot of the emphasis on finances, not understanding that you going to school, you obtaining your education, that is as much as a resource as gaining financially. They don't understand because the financial gain, that's a quick gain. That's something you can create some type of source of income, whether it be legally or illegally, and that's their main focus. Okay, I want to be an entrepreneur, or I want to be a hustler, or I want to do this just so I can gain some type of financial gain. You gain financial resources, not understanding that by obtaining your education, that can be another resource for you as well to obtain different types of successes and to obtain your goals and your dreams and your aspirations. It might be a longer process or some more foundational process, and it has a lot more substance to it. And it might take a little longer, but in the long run, those successes will last a lot longer than chasing those monetary financial quick gains.
Mr. Osley?
Pass.
You'll pass on that one, huh?
Yeah, he basically said what I was going to say.
Okay. All right, so ditto, huh?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Now, the Boys and Girls Club, what schools are the feeder schools for your particular chapter, and how do you go about instilling in the kids with whom you work the idea that education is the best for them long term as opposed to the quick financial gain you talked about?
Well, the two main high schools that filter into our location are Pebblebrook and South Cobb. Those are the teams that we serve. As far as, like you said, education, we have a wonderful program called College Bound, and I'll let Lamar talk on it a little bit. With our College Bound program, it's really geared towards finding those resources for teens to let them know that obtaining an education is possible. It is realistic and it is obtainable. You know, I was having a conversation with my teens on the way over here, and we talked about how a lot of times, and I'm sorry, Chuck made mention of it as well, you know, that competition for I have to have the highest grades, I have to have the highest test in order to get accepted into a college. But making them understand that, you know what, even though you might face some difficulties, even though your grades might not be as high as your counterparts because of some other, you know, things that you've had to deal with, you can still obtain a college degree. You might have to go about it a different way, but let's find a way to find you some scholarship money. If you didn't do so high on the SAT, not a problem. Let's find some other resources and avenues so that we can find a school that will accept you, and in doing so, you will have an opportunity to create a better future for you. That's one of the programs we have. I mean, we have a plethora of other ones as far as trying to teach them about how to live healthy as well. One of our pillars is healthy lifestyles. We want them to understand that if you live a healthier life, you'll be more successful as well. We always talk about, you know, obesity, childhood obesity, and things of that nature. But again, getting teens to understand that it's an investment into yourself. The things that you do are an investment into your future, and by placing some of those positive mechanisms in your life and, you know, helping them with these resources, hopefully we're helping them be successful in obtaining their dreams and aspirations.
Okay. Mr. Osley, I think you were asked to talk about the College Bound program a little bit.
I think College Bound is an excellent educational program. Not only do they help you get find scholarship for college, but they also, I went on a College Bound trip and they took us to 4 universities, and I found pretty interesting. It was eye-catching. So there's a lot of choices out there, but they will specifically, you know, start with the basic. Let's help you raise up your SAT scores. Let's help you study for the next test. Let's help you get scholarship money, financial aid. Let's see what college you best fit for, or what college you want to go to, and let's see how we can help you get accepted into that college with little or no money at all.
Okay, thank you. I also kind of want to come back to something that was mentioned earlier about the risk of the sexting factor and what happens in teenagers' lives. Just for the members of the audience who don't know what that term means, if you can sort of explain what it means and sort of how kids get themselves in that situation where they participate in this, what motivates that desire to participate, and what are the ramifications for them of participating in that?
Did you want to get
You want me to take this one? Great. Well, I guess that's my job every day, why not? I guess it can mean a lot of different things to different people. There's no, quote, law that says sexting, but I think what most people refer to, what law enforcement refers to, is sending messages back and forth, either verbal descriptions or images or videos involving sexually explicit conduct. It can be anywhere from kids talking about meeting up and engaging in certain type of things, or sending pictures back and forth of each other, or sending pictures via Facebook to their boyfriend or something like that. Some of the dangers in that, when you get people or kids involved in the internet, they may be sending this out. Some of them will get lured into sending this to a perfect stranger, or somebody tells them they're a modeling agency. Send me a picture. Now send me another picture. Okay, now that I have this picture, you have to create more of these photographs and send them to me, who is probably some pervert in Missouri or something. Sorry if anybody's from Missouri. Came to mind. I know all the Dogs fans are hoping they're going to lose this weekend. So anyway, and they basically can get blackmailed into creating more photographs that can be put on the internet or used for that guy's or that person's purpose. So a child can become a victim in what seems to be a very initially innocuous way. Then with children, with teenagers back and forth, we're seeing that a lot, where teenagers sending photographs of each other back and forth. There's a breakup. A boyfriend or girlfriend sends a photograph to then their friends. Haha, look at this. And then they send it out. And next thing you know, it's being posted on a website out of, the Eastern Europe or something like that. And so then law enforcement has to go through all these avenues to make sure, A, they take it down, and then B, investigate who all has seen this picture, who all has seen this video, who has distributed it, and who do we prosecute and why. So those are some of the dangers as well with the teen pressures. Now with all of these abilities to communicate via internet, via phones, they're putting a lot more of themselves out there, and that stuff's out there forever once it's on the internet. And so there's a lot of danger in that, it being out there, and then you see the, I guess, the fallout from it. You have children, once they're exposed like this, I mean, the damage that is done mentally to these kids is immeasurable. Thinking that all these things are out there, their photographs are on the internet, people are talking about them, things of that nature, it just can be devastating. They can end up, and then you talked a little bit about bullying. They can be bullied by their students because of this, and it could end in suicide. It could end in all kinds of different crimes. So that's what we see as far as sexting and kind of what it's referred to in the law enforcement community now, and what we see as the biggest problems coming from it.
I'm going to throw out another term as well that I picked up from an in-service and talking about this very topic last year, sextortion. That was kind of a new one to me. And remember, I'm at a middle school, so my kids are a little bit younger, and it may be a little bit more prevalent at the high school age. But it could be a boyfriend, girlfriend, and now the relationship has dissolved, and one of the parties comes back and says, well, if you don't send me an inappropriate picture, then I'm going to tell this rumor about you, or I'm going to show this picture that you've already sent me. And so there, the term sextortion then has, because it is like a blackmail. If you don't, send this material to me, then this is what I'm going to tell our classmates. I think we have to remember too, some of the entertainment that our children are being exposed to, the music videos, reality television that you mentioned, and just plain old movies and television are so much more graphic than they were, say, when I was growing up. And they do have access to this, and they may not always be supervised, at home. So I see some of my younger girls trying to emulate particularly some of the music stars, celebrities, and taking very provocative photographs with themselves. They can do it on their cell phone. They think nobody's going to find out. They might think that it looks cute, or wow, this looks really glamorous, and show a friend. The friend says, well, hey, send that to me. And then the next thing you know, the entire, student body has seen it.
Do all of you encounter this phenomenon in your various professions and walks of life?
Unfortunately, I do all the time. But
what is the motivation that influences teens to participate in this in the first place? Is it because they're being pressured in the first place to have these photographs? Is it a desire to be popular? What's motivating this desire to participate?
I think. Wait, repeat your question.
What is motivating teens to participate in this in the first place? This sexting phenomenon.
I think it's the pressure from like what she said, the pressure from the other parties. Because when you're in a relationship, if you're in like a long relationship, then one party might, feel like that the other party might love them or take it to the next level, and they might want to try something new. And sexting might be like the thing that person wants to try new. And the other party might even agree to it. Some parties don't stop it or don't say, that's not respectable, and that's not respectable of you to do that. But some people, in today's generation, they'll say, yeah, send me some nudity or talk to me dirty or something like that. So I really do think it's from the other party or from the other peer members. That's really it.
Okay.
One thing that I want to address is we're talking about a lot. My other colleagues have touched upon it a little bit. Is that self-image? That's that concept of self-image, as well as the concept of self-worth, self-esteem, and self-value. I think a lot of times teens, they're dealing with a lot of things, and they're still trying to figure out who they are. They're still trying to figure out what's important to them. They're still trying to develop their own personal values. And along with that, if they're receiving pressures from, like you say, for sexting and things like that from their peers, they want to be accepted. And if they feel like they won't be accepted by individuals that they love, their peers, or other people in their circles, if they're not participating in such activities, then it pushes them to that. But at the same time, what I think we really need to focus on is having these conversations with our teens about the effects of this, as well as the long-term effects of this, as well as developing their self-worth and their self-value to the extent of where it's okay to say no. It's okay to do something that's outside the norm. It's okay to not fit in. It's okay to be yourself. Let's have a conversation with our teens about them feeling more comfortable with who they are and standing firm on their own personal beliefs and not feeling like they have to give in to what everyone else is doing just because their peers say it's the right thing to do. If they feel like it's not the right thing to do, let's talk about them being firm in their values and their morals.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's a good segue too, kind of the failure of that when they're not, they don't have that self-worth and you don't talk to them about that, they can get into some things that can be really damaging, like especially when we have Atlanta is a big hub for commercial sexual exploitation. And with a lot of kids that are on social media or meet up with people in malls and things like this, that pressure from what they see on TV, their lack of self-worth, they can be convinced to do something, convinced to go to say, all right, well, come hang out with me at this place in Atlanta. Next thing you know, it's an older male. Maybe they're trying to convince, oh, wow, I'm hanging out with this older male who now wants me to come back to his hotel room and engage in sexual acts with him. Now he wants me to take pictures. Well, he says he loves me. I'll keep doing this. And the next thing you know, this person, because of this lack of self-awareness, this lack of worth, are being led down that road. And next thing you know, they think it's this glamorous lifestyle they're getting into where they're being basically prostituted out at young ages by older men. And the next thing you know, they could be abused. They're found, as runaways. They get involved in drugs and things of that nature. And I think part of it is the self-worth stuff. I think part of it also is society glamorizing this stuff because we've had this whole culture where it's been glamorized regarding, pimping and things like that, and how this is great lifestyle. It really is a farce. And I think that's kind of perpetuated it a lot and really has led to a great deal of child abuse in the metro area.
I want to kind of take a step back, the sexting conversation, but also kind of pick up what you said, Mr. Boring. As far as the sexting is concerned, are there legal ramifications for the teens who participate, whether they're sending or receiving? And at what point is there a policy in the DA's office of treating one type of sharing of those images in one manner, but then if it gets distributed, it's treated in some different manner?
Okay. Technically, under the law, it could be a crime to possess child pornography or what would be considered sexual exploitation of children, an image of a child under 18 in a sexually explicit manner. That is technically possessing child pornography. That another teen could be charged with that, technically. Now, we don't have a firm written policy because we have to take every case kind of on a case-by-case basis. However, it does get much more egregious and it becomes much more criminal when you get to the point where it's not just teenagers, a boyfriend, girlfriend sharing. You've got somebody that actually either A, has this photograph and is now distributing it out onto the internet or to other people, knowing that they're going to cause mental harm, or you've got somebody, as you talked about with this sextortion stuff we've had people who have actually hacked into other people's accounts and taken their photographs and then distributed it. You have people threatening these other children to now, I've got to create more photographs or I'm going to get in trouble. And yes, those people, I don't think, and we've had teens involved that have done that, several teens that have been involved in this sextortion. When they take it to that level, they're going to be dealt with pretty harshly. They're going to prison. So it could have some extreme ramifications once you get to the point of knowing that you have this photograph that somebody doesn't want out there and you are now putting it on the internet.
Does that make the person who distributes it a registered sex offender?
Absolutely. Yeah, distribution of child pornography is a registrable offense.
And what sort of things does that do to that person's life in the future, whether it comes to where they live, where they work? What is that? What obligations does that put on them?
Well, being a registered sex offender, obviously, it's on the internet. Anybody can find it in a neighborhood you move. They're going to know that you're a registered sex offender. It's going to affect where you can get a job. It's going to affect where you live. Additionally, in Cobb County, in all of our cases, when somebody is prosecuted for one of those type of crimes, we also have special conditions of probation for sex offenders, which talks about you have to, once you're out of prison, if you go to prison, once you're on probation afterward, you have to follow certain conditions, including from having to get an offender evaluation and treatment you're subject to polygraphs with that. You can't have contact with anybody under the age of 18. You can't go to parks. You can't volunteer. In fact, some people have to keep driving logs. Every part of your life is pretty much monitored at that point if you've shown yourself to be a sex offender.
And so basically, if you have two 17-year-old kids dating, the boyfriend and she have a bad breakup, and he gets mad and starts sending out photographs that he got from her that are of herself, naked or whatever, he could be a registered sex offender.
Technically, he could.
Okay. I'm sure that's something that people may not realize.
And I think we've had a much more concerted effort over the past few years to go into schools and try to get through to people. Look, you understand what you're doing. This could have a really bad result if you do this. Hopefully, I think now seeing some of the cases that are coming out in the media and the public where people are being prosecuted for this, and students and teenagers see how serious it is, maybe it's curbing that a bit. But yes, I don't think you can reiterate that enough to your children that, it's not all fun and games. You can really, A, hurt somebody, and B, get yourself in a lot of trouble.
I think also some of you commented upon the idea that Atlanta has become a major hub, unfortunately, for sex trafficking. Is it the case that teens are the most popular targets of this kind of activity on the part of those who want to engage in these activities?
Well, I mean, prostitution, I guess, is probably one of the oldest. What is it? The saying, one of the oldest professions, oldest profession known to man. But I think now, especially adults are very involved in that type of thing, obviously. But the taking advantage of children in this realm has really kind of picked up steam. And I think a lot of it is due to more of a focus being put on prevention and exposing what's going on. So now people actually recognize this stuff. It has become a bigger problem, I think, because of social media as well, because it's easier to lure children into this type of this scenario, this atmosphere. But as far as why Atlanta is, I mean, Atlanta is the metro area because it's such a hub for, you've got Hartsfield Airport where you've got the busiest airport in the world. You've got 75, 85, I-20, all these highways coming through into the city, into the metro area. You people who are runaways or people coming through, leaving home and coming up from other cities, other states, they end up in Atlanta. They get on a bus, they end up in Atlanta. And then you have kids that are just from around the metro area. It's easy to gain access to get into the metro area. You've got MARTA, you've got mass transit. Kids can get down there. When I was in Fulton County, I prosecuted a number of cases that started around underground Atlanta in that area. Kids would end up running away from home, skip school, end up down walking around the downtown Atlanta area, and one of these predators would be down there waiting for the next mark, the next kid that's coming about looking like they're out of their element, and they take advantage of them. So I don't know if that completely answered your question, but
No, you did. Thank you. Thank you. Now, some probably think, well, that's a problem for teenagers in downtown Atlanta. That's their problem. But here in Cobb, we don't have that issue at all. We're safe from that because we're suburbs. We're more affluent. We're safe from that.
Well, people who say that are kidding themselves. Most of the kids, actually, the victims that I would see in Atlanta were not from Atlanta. They were people from the suburbs, I had a number from Sandy Springs area. You had kids from Decatur, from DeKalb, from Gwinnett County, from Cobb County. We have a number of these cases in Cobb County and around Cobb County of children that may be either from here or kids that are from Atlanta that have come up to Cobb County. I-75 comes right through here. We've got a number of hotels off the highway. So it can be kind of a multi-jurisdictional, multi-state thing with people moving from state to state. And it can just be things that you have a lot of these perpetrators seeing it glamorized too. They grow up, they're teenagers, they see this pimp lifestyle being an easy way to make money and I guess increase their status amongst their friends, and it turns into a life of crime. And it can be homegrown as well as come in from other places.
Some of you had also mentioned the pressure of gangs and gang activity amongst teenagers. Can you kind of talk about your experience, what you've seen, what you've observed, and what is it that makes teens susceptible to wanting to be in a gang in the first place?
I mean, I think going back to the old saying, it's just that sense of belongingness. It's just that sense of belongingness, the sense of fitting in with someone. You know, a lot of times if they're not receiving that at home or at school or at another positive environment, you know, they look at the gangs are very accessible. We'll say that they're very visible within the community, and it's very quick to get lured into that because again they're accessible, they're in the community, they're constantly flashing, I guess, what looks nice on the surface. But as we all know, below the surface, there's a lot more. It's a lot more treacherous, and it's a very negative community or population to be involved in. So gangs make themselves very accessible. They make themselves very visual, and that's what lures them. You know, how about we make some of these community resources more accessible to teens? How about we try to create more jobs for teens, making those accessible? Like you said, those scholarship opportunities. If we were to make a lot more of these things more accessible to teens, I think we would see a huge shift in that curve.
Okay. Mr. Ozzie, you want to offer some insight on that?
I completely agree with him. I also think that maybe it's not only just the feeling of being accepted, but it might be also the feeling of being safe. Because maybe like somebody has been abused and maybe they want to be around people who will make them feel safe within that group. And maybe like if he ever gets into trouble, he may feel like he have people to depend on. But really, when it all comes down to it, if you go to jail, they will not be there for you. So really, it all backfires at the end of the day.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else want to add to that?
I think accessibility is absolutely a key element in that. And I think a lot of the peer pressure as well of being, you know, the toughest kid on the street, I'm with the baddest gang, you know, and kind of a little bit of the glamorization of the gang lifestyle as well. You get into it, you think it's going to be all, you know, money and having a good time and doing all these things. And then you find out later that's not what it's cracked up to be. And you've got the older people in the gang that are making you do bad things to get initiated into the gang. And find out that the gang basically functions based on criminal activity. You've got a society where snitching, so to speak, is basically just completely, I hate to say looked down upon, but a large movement for people not to report crimes, not to testify when something bad happens, that something bad is going to happen to you if you actually witness a crime committed. And we've had numerous cases here in Cobb County, in Atlanta that I handled, where there would be 100 people out there at the scene of a crime, and the police go out there, and maybe one person has the guts to tell the truth about what happened, because everybody's A, either scared, or B, that mentality is out there that, you know what, we should not tell the truth about what happened because then we're, quote, a snitch. And I think that kind of contributes a little bit into the, you know, children getting into this gang activity. But I think a lot of it is accessibility. I mean, you can't get around that. It's just, you know, kids want to belong to something. And then you have people that see that as an easy recruiting ground. Like, okay, I see these kids. They don't have something in their home life. I can take advantage of that and bring them into my fold to help me do what I need to do, and become a part of this, you know, this criminal gang.
If I may, I want to make a statement. I'm glad he brought up that point, the whole idea of snitching and talking to the police and reporting information. One of the things that I found within my line of work is that you can pretty much get teens and youth to do anything you want them to do, depending on the type of relationship that you develop with them. I've always used the analogy: you can get a youth or a teen to walk on hot coal if they trust you, and if you've taken the time to develop that relationship with them, then that goes into that sense of belongingness, that sense of trust. They'll be willing to communicate with you. So one of the things, and we do have these conversations with our teens, as far as from the standpoint of explaining the difference between snitching and reporting. It's good to be a reporter. A reporter is somebody you want to be. Good citizens report information because it is your community. You have a right to take care of your community. There's nothing wrong with reporting information. Snitching is an individual who's telling on other people just for their own self-gain. We try to teach them that information, as well as one of the things that I would like to see is, more community involvement from our leaders, from our police department. Not saying that they're not already doing that, but getting to a point to where you develop a relationship with these teens outside of I'm a police officer for the community. If they get to know you as a person, as an individual, they develop that positive relationship with you, you can get them to talk to you and deliver information to you. But again, that just goes into that whole self of belongingness that we talked about, that whole sense of community. If they feel some type of tie to their community, to the individuals that are within their community, they'll share information with you. They definitely will share information with you if they feel like they have a relationship with their community and those individuals.
I think that we are actually coming a long way in that regard. The beauty of my particular department that I work for now is the Cobb County School District Police Department. We have recently drastically increased our manpower numbers, and a lot of people don't know, but there's at least one campus police officer on every high school campus, and we have several that have two. And every middle school in Cobb County now has a full-time campus police officer on duty. I can tell you from being in a school every day for the past 11 plus years, sometimes it does take a little while. I am at a middle school in Powder Springs, and before that I was in a middle school in Austell. So I do work with those kids who are economically disadvantaged. They may not have a two-parent household. There's all of these things that they would like to have, and they are looking to belong, and they are looking for some guidance. They get to see me every day in a little bit of a different light than, for example, when I worked for Cobb PD and I was just out on the road responding to a call. So it is a very unique opportunity that we have with the campus police department to be able to connect with those kids and be a resource for them.
Thank you. I think several of you also have mentioned the pressures associated with bullying. I think in the past, people thought of bullying as just a normal rite of passage, that kids get pushed in a locker, they get in a fight on the playground. That's just kids being kids. No big deal. Is that the view that is held today, and what are the long-term ramifications for a teen who is bullied?
I guess I'll start with that. And to reemphasize, I do work for the school district police department. I believe we're the second largest school district in the state. We have 114 schools, and we have over 110,000 students in the school system. That's a lot of kids. And we do have, I work hand in hand with our school administration. So naturally, I'm there to keep the kids safe and to complete investigations. And if there's a state violation, a law broken, then I can handle that. But we also have a student code of conduct that I work hand in hand with our administrators. Things that would be a violation of a school policy, where that they could receive a school consequence, a school discipline. And Cobb County School District does have absolutely, they've taken a hardline stance on bullying, and it is covered, within our student code of conduct. What I have learned about bullying is that bullying is repeated. So it's not just one isolated event, one comment made from one student to another, or one argument between two students, but a repeated pattern of behavior where there is either an actual or a perceived imbalance of power between those two people. And it can come in forms of verbal, physical, or written, harassment.
Anyone else want to comment on bullying?
I would. I never gotten bullied, but I've seen people who've gotten bullied. I can't really say they got shoved into lockers or thrown into garbage cans and stuff like that, but I could say like it's gotten worse over the years. Like now there's cyberbullying. Well, now the social media websites are being used to bully other people, and once you put stuff on the internet, it never goes away, and other people can view it and see it, and that is, I would say, dangerous because the person who is getting bullied would eventually might think, this isn't life. Why am I living? And they might commit suicide. So bullying back then, I would say, is not compared to today's generation of bullying, because now it's reached new levels and new heights where now it's so dangerous that you might lose a son or lose a daughter.
Well, you mentioned the term cyberbullying. Can you just explain what does that mean?
Cyberbullying is like when you're using technology to harm another individual. It could be every day, it could be like twice a week, but it's used to put that person down and make you have superiorities over that person. So it makes not only them look bad, but it makes like the things, I guess, that they do look even worse.
Do all of you experience, not necessarily on the receiving end, but do you actually encounter cyberbullying in your daily experiences?
Yes. Well, we see it. I think to a degree, even as adults, we see it in the workplace. Not in my office. Our office is awesome, but you can see it in the system. But mostly, what we see is the aftermath of actual bullying, either what happens with a victim or what happens with a perpetrator. We'll end up prosecuting somebody if they've been bullying somebody again and again, and it accelerates and accelerates, and it becomes a more a greater crime. But you also see the effects of bullying with some of our victims. Some of our, a child's bullied repeatedly, their self-esteem goes down, and they're a much more vulnerable victim for different types of crimes. And then you can end up with a kid who's bullied as a defendant sitting at a table because it's gotten to that point where, they've reached their final straw, and then they act out against it. And somebody, unintentional may be harmed, or maybe they took that bullying, instead of doing something, reporting it, they've physically assaulted somebody. And, the repercussions can be pretty serious.
Anyone else want to add to that discussion? No. Okay. At what point does bullying tip over from being just sort of mean or cruel behavior to something that's kind of actionable as a law enforcement issue? Something that needs to be reported, needs to be prosecuted. What's the tipping point there?
There's a number of different ways to go at that, and a lot of it depends on the age. For instance, technically, you could be charged with the crime of cruelty to children in the first degree, which is a felony for causing a child cruel or excessive physical or mental pain. So if you've got somebody, and to be prosecuted as an adult, you have to be 17 years or older, but let's say you're 17, 18, 19, and you're bullying a teenager, you could technically be charged with cruelty to children in the first degree if you're doing something so extreme as to cause cruel and excessive mental pain to that person. You could be charged with stalking, things of that nature as well, for harassing somebody if you've been told not to do that again, if it puts them in reasonable fear of receiving some type of harm. So those are the types of things, just technically the cyber activity could be, or if you're posting, sometimes you have protective orders or a court order not allowing you to have contact with somebody. You go on the internet and you start posting stuff about that person or sending messages to that person. It could evolve into an aggravated stalking situation. But usually when we see it, it's somebody who is either doing the bullying who's escalated to a point where they're committing violent acts against them as well. And so they'll be charged, they could be charged with aggravated assault or, something even worse.
How would a parent know that their child is being bullied, especially if the child is not very communicative, or something obvious like perhaps the child's got a black eye? That's pretty obvious. But how does a parent know? What are the warning signs they should be looking out for? Say, my child is being bullied.
if the child doesn't like talk in the house, or if he just bees alone, or if he changes, like if he's
Change.
like if he's like with his mom and they always talk, and all of a sudden they're getting bullied and now he's more to himself. I think that's a clear sign that something is going on with your child, and maybe you should have a one-on-one conversation with them.
Or you get a son who's like, always going to basketball games, school functions, something like that, and all of a sudden they're like, I don't want to go there. I don't want to go to this basketball game, or I don't want to go to this particular activity that I used to love. I don't want to go anymore. Something's changed there. Maybe that could be something where they're getting bullied by somebody in that activity. Being more withdrawing from being around people. Say they just shut down they don't get on, I don't want to have a Facebook site anymore, or, well, I guess for the older people, whatever it is, Kick or whatever. They disconnect
They
there.
don't want to go on a kick anymore.
We don't want to kick it.
No, yeah, they don't want to go on a kick anymore. But they disconnect from society or from something for some reason unknown to them. That could be a sign that they're being bullied in that arena.
And to piggyback off of that too, not wanting to go to school. They used to love to go to school because school, yeah, you get to learn, but you get to see your friends and, go to PE and eat lunch with your friends, not wanting to go to school. And that is something, particularly at the middle school level, sometimes that we do see. All of a sudden, my child doesn't want to come to school anymore. I'm not really quite sure what's going on. We have counselors in the building, and of course our administrators are available. So at each school level, I know the schools try really hard to make themselves available to help the parents recognize some of those signs and symbols. Could also be their grades. They were a good student, and now all of a sudden they're barely, passing their classes. I think all of those things are things to look for.
How about if we flip the question? What if your child is the bully, the one doing the bullying? How do you deal with that, and how does that get addressed?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Thank you. I try to ask good questions.
Yeah. I'm gonna pass it real quick. Pass it to my colleagues.
I know how it probably used to be handled, but I guess as parents, you just have to be aware, and you got to start early. If it gets to that point where they're late teenagers, they've already developed that personality. That's something that, I think needs to be addressed early on as a parent, teaching them to have respect for others, not to pick on people who may not be as strong as they are, maybe not run as fast as they are, things like that. Learn a respect for other people. Mm-hmm. And I think that can go a long way. I think starts in building that child's character early on, because when it gets to that point, if a child's developed those habits into their teen years and they think this is okay, it's going to be hard to turn that around.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anyone else want to add to that?
It's a pretty bleak
That's
answer,
it.
but
Right. Well, we'll get to the positive stuff here shortly. So just want to educate people sort of at this point. One thing I guess in particular directed to Ms. Herman, in terms of bullying, obviously a lot of the kids know each other from school. That's how they came together. Mm-hmm. But it's very unlikely that they're going to be bullying each other either as cyber or physically at the school grounds. They're going to be off-site, outside the school property. Mm-hmm. How does the school deal with those situations where a student in one apartment is bullying a friend in a different apartment, both of which are completely off-site, but their common denominator is they both are classmates at that school?
Right. That is sometimes a very sticky situations that administration deals with, and sometimes, quite honestly, is not quite sure how to deal with it. And I think that we do the best that we can. Like I said, Cobb County School District does have a student code of conduct and has very rigid definitions and explanations on what behavior is tolerated and what is not, and the consequences for that if you are in violation of that code of conduct. But we do see frequently parents that we don't see the bullying behavior inside the school building, but we'll get a call from a parent that this is what happened over the weekend, or this is what happened at night, in the evenings outside of school. I honestly do try to help fill in the gaps, and I may communicate with another local police department. I speak with officers with Cobb County as well as City of Powder Springs frequently. Also, I have pretty regular contact with the district attorney's office to help be a facilitator where the school administrations may not be able to act on that outside activity because it is not their jurisdiction. And I do try to fill in that gap to give them another contact or a resource to call. You know, this is not happening at school, so we cannot address this behavior at school. We'll keep an eye on it. We can offer some counseling, some other supports while the kids are at school. But if the behavior is occurring outside of school, then here's some people that you can reach out to.
Now, obviously, we've been talking about a lot of the different things that sort of are pressures that teens deal with. And I'm sure we could obviously talk a few more hours long just going over all the pressures that are dealing with. But I want to kind of turn around to sort of preventative things, what people can do to help sort of prevent these different phenomena that we've been describing. If you're not a parent, or maybe it's not your child who's involved, maybe your kids are grown, what role, if any, do you have in the community that can help address these issues, such as the bullying, whether it's gang activity, whether it's kids sending inappropriate images to each other? How can the community deal with these issues, and what role can they play? And this is a question for all the panelists.
I'll go ahead and speak on that. I think that's kind of as they say, the meat and potatoes of what organizations like the one I represent, as well as other organizations in the community, actually doing. Filling that gap between that after school time, as far as providing constructive programs and activities, things to help develop youth, their character, develop them to live healthier lifestyles, just really providing those resources for them. Definitely, there's several organizations that I know within several communities who are lacking resources, who would love to reach out to a larger number of youth, a larger number of teens, but they're lacking resources. So I would suggest anyone look into your own community, find out some of these after-school programs, these organizations that are actually trying to step out and reach these teens, reach youth, and see what type of resource you can be towards them. Because again, there's a number of organizations like Boys and Girls Clubs, as well as several other ones, who are doing great things. And if they had more resources, then they would be able to have a wider reach and get more teens and more youth off the streets, and be able to get them involved and educate them during that after school time as well.
Okay. You want to add to that answer?
Yeah, I would say also not just man hours, volunteering and getting involved in your neighborhood, your community with these resources, but financially contributing to these. That's right. They're going to need money to operate. So I mean, getting financially involved. Find a cause that you really think is worthwhile, that you've researched, that you know is going to be used for the right reason, and financially contribute to it if you don't have the time to do the man hours on it. But I think also educating yourself. Even if you're not a parent, educate yourself on these issues. So if you're out in the community, you're involved in one activity or another, and you are familiar with these type of things, let's just say, hypothetically, the commercial sexual exploitation. If you know about this, you've educated yourself about it, and you're somewhere and you see something, you're like, wait, that just doesn't look right. You know maybe some of the telltale signs, like this does not seem appropriate. Maybe I need to report this activity to a law enforcement official or something like that. So if you're educated, you can maybe recognize it. If you recognize it, maybe you could help put a stop to it. And if you can do that for just one victim of something like this, I mean, it's worthwhile.
And you don't have to have a student enrolled at a particular school to reach out to volunteer your time and talent. Just find out what schools are in your area that would service, what's your elementary school that would service your neighborhood, what's your middle school, what's your high school, and reach out to those schools and volunteer. Most of our schools have mentoring programs or different where community leaders can come in to give inspirational talks to our students or one-on-one mentoring time.
Okay. Exactly.
I agree. As a teen, for myself, I can only speak for myself right now. After school, I do have things to do. I do have a job. If I don't work, I would go to the Boys and Girls Club. I think it's the matter of, like what he said, resources. Like, teens need things to do, because when they don't have nothing to do, then they will turn to crime or maybe even worse. So I think it would be best if not just one person, get involved in team participation, but maybe like get a group of older adults and have something for the teens to do, like I don't know, like paint a fence or mow a lawn or financial things, help them get a job, help them get scholarships, tutor them, go to church, things like that.
Okay, thank you. I think earlier the point was made that Facebook is something that maybe adults think, hey, that I'm cutting edge, I'm on Facebook, I'm really hip. Well, we've discovered that's clearly necessarily not the case. So how do parents who may not be tech savvy, how do they try to prevent their kids from improper communications online or not sending inappropriate images to one another? How can parents be on the lookout for that? How can they act to stop this before it occurs?
I'm going to jump in as working with students every day and being a parent myself. My number one advice for parents, and I do have some of my parents that come through the door who come to me and say, what can I do? And hopefully, like Chuck had mentioned, they've already not developed some really, bad habits. But my number one advice to all parents is you have got to be nosy. You have got to know every single thing that your child is involved in and what they are doing. And it's okay. The word is child. They have not reached, by definition, adult. If they're under 17, then the child does have certain responsibility back to the parent, and so it's okay for that parent to look through their phone, ask questions, see what internet sites they're searching, whether it be on their laptop, their tablet, or if they're still using a desktop, which they're probably not. But it's okay to look at their history, ask questions. Who are your friends? Who is this person? And I think it's just the parents, they just have to be on them and just be really nosy, for lack of a better word, to know what your kid's up to every day. That's the best advice I can tell you.
Okay.
Be a parent. I mean, you don't give them unfettered access to everything. Know exactly what they're using, and this isn't a friendship. You're like, okay, you want to be in this? I should trust you. Give me your password. If you're not giving me your password, you're not using it. If you're going to try to use it anyway, I'm taking your computer. You just got to set hard and fast rules and educate them. Look, this is what this could lead to. It's not like I'm just being mean. I'm just trying to be the parent and show, I'm going to make you follow my rules. I don't want you to do this, as we all heard growing up, because I said so. I think it helps to show examples. Okay, if you do this, you aren't mature enough to know what could come from this.
Right.
And so these could be the ramifications, the repercussions of what could happen if you do get into this. And I just think you have to set boundaries. I am giving you this responsibility. I'm letting you do this. You don't have a right as a 14-year-old to be able to do A, B, and C. But I'm going to allow you to do that if you earn, my trust and you respect the fact that I'm going to monitor this.
I definitely want to concur with what Chuck said. I think that era of do as I say, not as I do, or do what I tell you because I'm the parent, that era does not exist anymore. Kids, teens, they question every single thing. So like he was saying, explain it to them, educate them, the consequences of their actions. A lot of times I feel like if teens truly understood the consequences of their actions and the ramifications, they would actually take just a split second to think about it before they actually do it. I think that's a great point. I think that's an excellent point. We have to start having more conversations with them. Like you said, start taking the time to actually have conversations, to develop that relationship with them. It goes a long way. It goes a long way. Just opening that conversation with them can go a long way.
I would say parents would need to talk to their child because that's how parents know what their child is up to or what their child is doing when they're not around. It builds trust in not only the teen but also in the parent, because now the way I see it, when my mom talks to me about like things that she's gone through and things that like if you do this will happen, I know because I've done that before. Then I feel like, well, if that happened to her, I don't want to be, the person to drive the car because if she crashed in the car, I don't want to crash in the car. So I think it comes down to parents do need to talk to their child more and more. I wouldn't really say be on them, like be on top of them, like as harsh, but I would say, get to know who your child is before you try to change them and make them look like you.
How early is it a good idea for parents to begin talking with their kids about risky behavior like this, sexting or the bullying or the temptation to go into gang activity? I mean, what's the good age to start that conversation?
At the first sign.
Yeah,
I would say at the first sign. There's the thing they say girls develop 2 years faster than boys, and conversations and things like that. Certain youth are exposed to certain things prior to other youth. Just the first sign, you can't ignore it. If you see a sign, if you feel like something is wrong, it's time to open up that conversation, regardless of how young you may think that they are, because children and youth nowadays are being exposed to things at ages significantly younger than they used to be. It might drive you crazy, some of the conversations I've heard our 6 and 7 year olds have, because they're exposed to so much at a younger age and they're growing up so fast because the world is becoming so small. So at the first sign, you can't say, oh, he's only 8 years old. Oh, that's just a child being a child. No, at that first sign, the first time you hear them say something or the first time you see something that's not right, it's time to have that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, even just at a basic level, obviously you don't go into mature adult topics with like a 6-year-old,
Right.
but you've got to start. And I mean, with my daughter, she's kind of not computer savvy. She's kind of naive to the world, whatever, you think that. But my son, as soon as he's knowing how to get on the phone and get on the internet at like 4 years old,
Right.
He's wanting to play games on Nintendo DS where they're interactive with other people. And you have to have a talk with them almost immediately, not necessarily in a specifically what bad can happen, but, what are you doing on this computer, whatever this device is? You got to figure out, do other people have access to it? Can they get on? Who has access to it? And talk to them about the dangers. Like, strangers could be on there and bad things can happen if you start talking. You have set ground rules. You can't play this game if it has access where other people you don't know can come in and chat with you or things like that. So I think you have to get involved in today's world almost immediately, as soon as they're able to use a technologically some type of device that can use technology or internet service. Because even though you may not be giving them permission to do that, they watch. They can come in. My son knows a password to my wife's phone. She didn't even know how you on it. He can get into it. Next thing you know, he's Googling videos, luckily, like Mario and stuff like that. But, it's amazing what they can do. And you don't want them to Google the wrong thing and stumble on some website that is not relevant to Super Mario. So the dangers are everywhere.
And you're going to know your own child and what they're kind of capable of understanding. And of course, in age-appropriate language, but I love preventative. Maybe, try to even start having an initial conversation, maybe even before you see the first suspicious, website or the first kind of suspicious text messages. It's okay to talk to them at a very young age. And so I'm definitely in the earlier years in elementary school, you need to start opening that dialogue with your child.
I think something that's been mentioned several times here tonight is this idea of self-image and kids having a confidence. I'm sure no parent, grows up thinking, I want to have a child who's insecure, who's going to be vulnerable to bullying, vulnerable to pressures from other teens. How do parents go about trying to build up their child's self-image in a healthy way so that they're better able to resist those pressures you've just talked about?
Get them involved. Church, cheerleading, basketball, football, soccer, volunteering, food banks. Just get them involved, because that really creates opportunities for conversations, as well as it gets them to meet other types of people, and it starts to develop. They really start to develop a sense of value and start looking at what's important to them. So I would say get them involved in as many things as possible. Of course, don't burn them out because they're still youth. They're doing school and they need time with their friends and they do need playtime. But just getting them involved in several different types of activities so that they can try to learn and discover who they are and what's important to them. Because I mean, youth don't know. Teens, children, they don't know what they want to do, what they like doing until they've at least tried it. So even if they're resistant towards trying something, get them to try different things, because I can't tell you how many times that I've pushed you to do something. Let's do this. Let's do that. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And then they go do it and they come back and they talk about how wonderful of an experience that it was. So get them involved, give them an opportunity to learn who they are, develop their character, their self-esteem, and you just grow from there.
Okay.
And I think really giving them some time of your day. We all work. We have very busy schedules, and it might be very easy to sit down, do your homework, and kind of maybe eat dinner in silence. But even just giving them, let them know how important they are to you, and ask them about their day as well to help encourage them. Oh, that you are really interested in what they've done during the day.
Okay.
And I think also maybe just lead by example as well. If they see that you're happy and you're confident in what you're doing in life and things like that, they take a lot from that. And so I think that can help as well. But I think really getting them involved, because once they find something that they are into, then they feel a lot more comfortable and a lot more confident, because they're like, okay, I know this. I love animals. I can get this group of friends in this activity love the same thing, and so now I'm confident in that setting, and it kind of builds from there.
I totally agree. I think parents should try to teach their child how not to fit in with society, because I think society is more of the problem than it is other people, because now it's not really your friend that wants you to be like this. It's society telling you that you should do this so that you can become this. But this road might not be actually the best road to take in order to reach that level of success that you want to obtain. So I think if parents taught them how to go on the right road, the right path to success, work hard, think smart, stay in your books, I think that would be the best situation for them, the best road to take. That's it.
And I'm going to put you on the spot, Mr. Osley, and you can be the final word for our program this evening, since you're the lone teen member of the panel. Unless the other three have surprised me and they're teenagers. But,
Not in the ballpark.
if you could tell me sort of, you've obviously made some very good points this evening. Tell us, what are some things that you want people in the audience to know about what it's like to be a teen today, and how you've managed to get where you are? What things have helped you get to where you are today?
All right, so first off, being a teen is awesome. There's a lot of older people in my the other generation that says, I would kill to be a teen. I wish I had my youth back. I think now there's more opportunities for teenagers, but it's not really being spreaded out or being talked about. I think, what was the other question you had?
Basically, what are the things that helped you get to where you are today? What things were done to help you get to the place that you are today?
Listening to older people, I would say, and surrounding myself with older people, because they're more experienced about the world than you are, so they know how the world works, and they're more wiser and smarter. And I also listen to my mom, because she is really my parent. She's the one who knows more about the world and more about myself than anybody else. So I think listening to older people and not really your peers is something that can get you a long way.
You sound wise beyond your years. Well, I hate to bring the discussion to an end this evening, but I'm afraid I think that's what the clock says. But I do want to thank each and every one of you, Mr. Osley, Mr. Collins, Mr. Boring, Ms. Herman. I think you've offered some wonderful insights for the people here in our audience, both here physically as well as online and out there in the TV audience. We're so very fortunate that you each have come here tonight to share your experience and you do what you do and how you contribute to the community and help the community deal better with these teen pressures and helping raise healthier teens as they grow up into adulthood. Of course, I want to also thank TV23 for the wonderful work they do as well to help make us look good and bring this presentation to us. And I want to thank the members here of our audience that came out tonight to brave the cold, as well as those folks who are watching us online and also on TV. With that, I will turn this over to Ms. Steiner, and she'll bring us out. Thank you.
Thank you for attending and watching on Channel 23 this evening. We especially want to thank our dynamic panel members and moderator. We are honored to have you as our moderator and panel members this evening. If you are a teen, parent, relative, friend, or acquaintance of a teen who needs advice, help to stabilize their life, or daily intervention, please contact one of our panel members or their organizations to seek help, advice, counsel, and intervention. Our community is very fortunate to have each of you protecting, advising, counseling, and educating our community concerning the pressures that teens face daily. We especially want to thank our teen panel member, Lamar, for joining us this evening. You have helped individuals understand the many pressures teens experience daily. A special thank you to David for broadcasting this discussion on Channel 23. Please join us Wednesday, January the 21st, for our Be an Educated Driver panel discussion. Thank you again for attending this evening, and good night.